Hey, this is How to Build Your Own Home, and I'm going to talk about what I did right, what I did wrong with a home here that I built. We had a massive forest fire, and it's still ongoing. The whole valley here is still engulfed in smoke, and you can hear the choppers in the background. But I wanted to walk through, and hopefully you can learn something from this and how to build a home that's better able to withstand a forest fire. And this was a major forest fire. The fire came down this way. This tree's torched. Every tree around me is basically torched. And it really just hit the house just like this. So when you look at homes that are literally flattened, and then you look at a home that's not flattened, you have to start to analyze what we did right and some of the things we did wrong. So we're going to walk through that, and I'll show you a couple of areas. First of all, most of the home is Class A fire rated, which means that the exterior wall, and I'll get real close and I'll show you what I'm talking about, is a cement board. It's not a combustible wood product. It's actually a cement board. And behind the batten board that you see, that's got 2.5 inches of mineral wool, which means it's fire retardant, fireproof, the whole works. If you know anything about mineral wool, you'll know that you can put a torch on it and let it sit, and it's not going to catch on fire. So in some previous videos, I showed how we actually wrapped the entire home in mineral wool. And so that's an insulator quality, and that's also a fire retardant quality. And then on the outside of that, we had batten board, again with a cement board, not with a wood combustible product. And so if you can put stuff on your home that's not easily combustible, that has a fire rating, and fire rating is variable, meaning that here's a product and you put a fire by it, and how long can that product withstand that fire? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? Let me give you a good example. If you see the beams there that are supporting the deck, originally the engineer called for 5x5 posts, which is, about like that. If you've gone through a lot of fires, you'll see that a lot of people just use the 4x4 post. It can handle a lot of compression strength, but it doesn't have much fire rating to it. What I mean by that is for every inch of wood, you get a certain amount of fire rating. A good example is you can see this here, ponderosa here. It's not completely level to the ground. It's a thick, dense piece of wood. So once the fire goes through it and takes off all the needles and all the open air stuff, what's left is that dense wood product, right? Same thing with the forest. You'll see the major density of the tree is still preserved, but all the needles and all the other part is taken out. Well, it's the same thing with a home. So if you're having some posts, wood exposed, which you're going to have on some homes, especially with decks like this, rate that up, get that as beefy as you can. And these are 8x8 rough sawn timbers. So even though they're charred just a little bit, they're still more than structurally sound, because these are overkill than the 5x5 posts that my engineer originally asked me to do. So that's one thing I tried to avoid, is more density in my wood that was exposed, and that helps out quite a bit. Right? You can still hear a fire chopper up there, and he's coming to get some more water. The other thing I did that I'll change I've already made the change on some other homes I'm doing up here, but I had aluminum soffit and fascia. Now, a lot of people will have your fascia board, and they'll just paint that, and that's wood exposed to the elements. Plus, it's a lot of maintenance. I never like to have my fascia board going down the ridge of my roof there. I don't like that to be wood ever. First of all, maintenance. Second of all, it's fire. Underneath that, which is you have your fascia board, and then you have your soffit and fascia. And soffit is the underbelly of your eave. I never like to have that any kind of a wood product at all either metal or a cement board of some kind, something that can hold up to a fire torching at it. Now, the problem with aluminum is it's a thinner gauge than a cement board. It can hold off some fire, but it can warp. So if you see up there along the ridge flashing on the roof, that's aluminum, and underneath that is the fascia board. And there's a couple of areas where that got such a hot temperature that it could fend off some of the flames, but it actually warped. So that's going to have to get replaced and fixed. My next homes that I'll be doing in the mountain area, I will not be doing aluminum soffit and fascia. I'll be doing cement board, wrapping it under the entire soffit and fascia of the entire home. And it will just be paint grade. And I'll just be a paint on it, and that's going to help out. But beneath all that, I have full framing, meaning that a lot of people don't frame and put sheeting under their soffit and fascia. As I'm building a home across the valley, I'm going to show you what we're going to do there, that some of the things we did here, but we're also going to do some major changes to help out with a future fire. But I don't have any open cavity, meaning that underneath that aluminum, you don't have any open cavity where air can get in through the soffit. And that's one of the big problems that you see with California fires and a lot of the fires. They have a ventilation underneath the eave where embers can work its way up, get inside the attic, and you got dry exposed timbers there. And hot houses a lot of times burn from the roof down. So I don't have any ventilation in my eaves at all. Not at this elevation. I'm at 67 feet elevation. Today it's about an 81 degrees. The high we get up here is maybe in the low 90s. And so I don't have a roof attic that gets exceptionally hot. On top of all that, I have an aluminum roof on top of my roof. Aluminum has a refractive quality to it. It's kind of a weak metal under extreme heat, but because my roof is a little higher, if embers hit it, it will just blow off, and it wouldn't. There's nothing for it to catch because it's an interlocking roof. Unlike a tile roof, if embers get underneath that tile, it can hit that tar paper, which I don't recommend. There's no tar paper on this house at all. It's all synthetic. So underneath all that, I got a thicker, almost a 5/8 inch roof sheeting, which gives more density, more meat as well. So it helps hold that roof down, which is another thing I can talk about down the road. So with the aluminum roof, which has a refractive quality, it can help refract heat back out in the atmosphere. And in the wintertime, it keeps the heat in the home during the wintertime. So a full metal roof and an aluminum on top of that. On the shallow parts of the roof, I have a standing seam. I can't do a drone shot right now because the firefighters have restricted drone use right now. But on some previous videos on the roof, you'll see that we did a standing seam on the shallow parts and then an aluminum shingle on the steeper parts of the roof. That full metal roof is probably your biggest plus in a high fire prone area because it can't catch. Like asphalt shingles are not the best. I've never put asphalt shingles on a home in 24 years as a builder. I don't believe in them. I don't like them. They radiate heat back into the home. They don't radiate heat back out in the atmosphere. And then it's easy for embers to catch fire because it's sand grit with a little bit of tar and then tar paper. And why put that on your home? And plus, it doesn't last very long. This roof, even though it's withstood this really torrential fire, it'll still be up there 100 years. So I've got a 50-year warranty on the paint, and then another 100-year warranty on from the manufacturer of that aluminum shingle roof. So I love to put real permanence on my home, and that really added to it as well. What I want to do is walk around the home and show you a couple of other things that I didn't even think would be an issue with fire, and it was an issue with fire. So we're going to go up on the deck, and I'll show you some other stuff in front of the house and how I'm going to change a few things. Let's get real close to the house. Okay, I'm going to walk around some landscaping and show you a couple of things I learned. Well, I use some wood bark just as a landscape thing, helps hold moisture, stuff like that. But on a dry day like we've had past couple days, catches fire. Luckily, when I was building this home, I didn't want my timbers really, really close to the ground. Code only says just a few inches, between 4 and 6 inches, depending upon your jurisdiction. So on these pillars, when we did them, I says, I want them higher. So I brought them up almost a foot higher. That gets them off the ground, first for wet and moisture prevention, but also you can see where the fire stopped right there, just a few inches up. It couldn't go any further. But if you had this wood chips right here smoldering up against a post that's down low, it could smolder over time and work its way into the frame structure. So keeping it up off the ground really, really helped with that. Let's walk over here and show you a couple of other things. Okay, there's just some landscaping things. I like railroad ties. Been in a fire. They're highly combustible. They're just filled with creosote, which is an oil, and it's just wants to burn. So little embers got there and just hung out and started to burn at the railroad tie. Again, if this was close to the house, you could have some problem. And then, of course, I had more bark and mulch around this tree, and it caught fire in the mulch and just torched this bubbler. All the bubblers up and down where all the landscaping is were just basically torched. So I know that I should have wet this down, but the hot temperatures were so insane, they just dry everything out. This tree is still alive, it's still bendable, it's not crisp, and I think it will pop back because it doesn't have a rigidity to it. It just had a light singe. But I think this will bounce back. But the fire caught ground. It started to burn on the ground because I had all this mulch through here. And you can see I even had some lighting here. It just melted right to the ground. In fact, that was a light and it melted to the pipe, to the landscape pipe. So it really just torched that whole area. So I had more damage on landscaping visually than I had just about anything. So, and then up here it's kind of interesting. The deck was pretty much okay except for where the mat was. So some embers caught and landed on this mat, which is highly combustible, and the rubber started to melt and it burned right through the mat and damaged the deck right there. So be careful on what you leave on the outside of your home. You never know what's combustible. You think that, great, I'll make this non-combustible, but we leave things around the house that are combustible. So let's go on the deck, and I want to go over the windows with you. Okay, we're up on the deck here. This was the area that I was most worried about. I wasn't worried about the wall structure here. This, again, is all cement board, and behind that I got 2 inches of mineral wool. So the insulation, and there's no combustibility on here over a long heat exposure. I was worried about the deck. And so when they evacuated us, I put a sprinkler right here, and it sprinkled all the way that way, and it sprinkled all the way that way. And you can see where the ash caught the water, and it kind of puddled through here. And we let that run as we evacuated. Firefighters obviously came and took the hose and used that hose to fend off other things, but this whole area was wet. And this is where the brunt of the fire was, right at this corner and right at that corner of the deck. So the beams were kept wet, the deck was kept wet. You can see right here, this tree right here, the sprinkler literally kept that tree wet and that tree wet, so it couldn't get close to the home. So what would I do differently? I put some sprinklers up on the roof. I actually want to talk to a client about that, and put some sprinklers on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corners of his home, have it go downstairs in the basement so that I can test it every year and drain it into the basement. But as people are evacuating, it has to be manually done unless I have some sort of technology to turn it on in case of a fire. But if I had that on there, I could have turned that sprinkler system on for the entire roof structure, and then it would have kept everything wet. So you can see how the sprinkler kept those leaves there, not leaves, but those branches, those were soaking wet. Now they dry off real quick. I mean, when the fire comes through, it evaporates it, but it helped withstand some of the extreme fire. So that's why this tree right close to the house didn't get scorched. It's because I had some water here. And if that did get closer, it could have done a little more damage. But again, I wasn't too worried about the posts because I have a lot of meat on these posts, which is kind of overkill. But let's go look at the windows, because that's where we don't really think about how best to protect a home. All right, we're on the window now, and you can see all the ash that just plastered on there. Imagine a sprinkler going here and ash blowing in the wind and landing on a wet surface. So I have a lot of power washing to do. But the real heat occurred up here on this window here. You can see the flashing on the window popped, and then it popped over here. So I have some window installers coming next Tuesday to look at this to see, do we need to pull a window or can we say that we'll find out? Usually, if the flashing right here, this is a vinyl window, and had I to do it over again, I'd probably do aluminum. So this one here is really weak right here. It got some heat in there. So it's possible they could pull that and put in some new trim right there. So there's a little bit of warping there. But the worst one is up top here. And this one here got so hot on the window, it cracked. My theory is that, you know how you take out a piece of glass and I used to work in a buffet restaurant. Every once in a while, you take a glass and you change it from one temperature to another temperature rapidly, and it cracks and breaks in your hand. Well, I'm thinking that that's probably what happened with that window, with the sprinkler going here and suddenly heat hitting it, and then some water with firefighters, maybe torching it with some water real quick. That could have caused the crack. I've got another one over here, window up here, and this one here is the worst one on the entire building. It just really, really cracked. So I can imagine the heat right here, just barreling against the home, and it can't catch fire here. So, and this here is aluminum flashing, but right inside there is the window, which is vinyl. So I have that small, thin piece that's highly combustible, but it doesn't withstand its frame structure. So again, I'd probably go with aluminum on that and not have to deal with that kind of a mess. But again, that's the worst window. I do have a window upstairs. My son, who's handling the camera right now, it's his bedroom when he comes up and visits. That window got cracked, both of them. And that's way high up. So I can just imagine the heat barreling against this house. And I talked with the firefighters. It literally came this way and hit the entire home. You have a complete forest out there, and it hit this home. And when you have nothing combustible here, and you have a lot of meat there, and a lot of aluminum metal covering your soffit and your fascia, it's really hard for it to catch fire. All that it can do is the heat builds up here, and it warps your windows. And then with the extreme change in temperature, you can have some cracks in your windows. So that's most of the problem. The other side of the house, I didn't have any problem with. It's just this side of the house. And I was really worried about the deck. I didn't know if it was combustible. But it's such a smooth surface, and there's wind going through here, and the wind was pretty insane. It wouldn't give embers the opportunity to sink in and melt like you saw on the deck up front. It landed on that rubber mat, and it started to get fire. But if you have a solid surface like this, the embers can't work its way in. So the deck is just really dirty, mostly just dirty. The front deck needs some repair, and there's a couple of spots that we can do some touch up. Anyway, things I've learned on the fire. It's still going, the fire up there in the mountain. I hope to help this out. On the next series I have, we're going to really do some added things to the home. We'll do all this that you see here, but we're going to do some stuff on the soffit and the fascia to really keep it from having any issue with the fire down the road. These are things I learned. I'm sad that I had to go through this, but hopefully people can learn and get some great feedback from that. If you want to know more, go to howtobuildyourownhome.com. I will have an additional episode on how to build that can withstand fires. And this was a pretty brutal fire. Wind coming at 35 miles an hour right at the house site here. I have cedar trees right outside there that I couldn't cut down because they were my neighbor's cedar trees. So I literally had to build the home to withstand what was going to come at me. So there's a lot of good things here and a lot of things I've learned. And I will have an additional course in my self-managed course at howtobuildyourownhome.com. We're going through a whole additional series on building technology and building construction to withstand a lot of different things that the elements can take at you. And I'll be actually talking about some more technology coming out that's fire resistant with a high class A fire rating. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you'll learn something from this. I sure did myself. See you guys next time.